We're live. You guys ready? All right. Welcome, guys. This is episode 6 of our FAB podcast, and this show is entitled Positioning Student Athletes to Thrive in High School and Beyond. Today, I want to introduce my co-host, Bailey, our Director of Outreach. And I'm excited about this episode because we have Amy Bryant of Bryant College Coaching. She is the fifth and first female in NCAA history in any division to win the National Tennis Team Championship as a coach and a player. Through her 23 head coaching tenure, she mentored hundreds of bright and motivated student athletes to thrive academically, athletically, and personally. Her players have also won 19 national championships, 8 team and 11 individual. And the Intercollegiate Tennis Association honored her as the National Coach of the Year. Let's give it up for Amy Bryant. Welcome to the show. Before we kind of kick off with all our questions, I would love for you to talk about Bryant College Coaching, if you can, real quick.
Sure. I started Bryant College Coaching about 3 years ago now to help high school student athletes with the college athletics recruiting and college admissions process, with the goal of really helping them to thrive in college by taking this whole process, the whole college search process, through a holistic kind of process of exploring options and talking to coaches and going through everything that it takes to get to the right team for each individual student.
Awesome, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing and thank you for being here. I would love to just go ahead and dive in because I know raising a student athlete obviously brings a lot of questions, which I'm sure you experience on a daily basis. But I'd love to start off with the executive functioning piece. I think it's so huge. So I'd love to know, like, how can a parent help their student athlete improve their executive functioning skills while juggling the competitive demands of what being a student athlete entails?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, parents have to be teachers here. And it's really important that a parent doesn't underestimate what a student is able to do as a high schooler and beyond. So, for example, um, they parents need to make their children pack their own bags and bring their own equipment, prepare their snacks, think about their day and what they need in order to perform at the level that they want to perform. Avoid using the excuse, my child is too busy to do this. No child is too busy to take care of themselves and prepare themselves for their sport and what they love doing. We also need to teach our children how to advocate for themselves when they need help, because they will need help along the way. And, that could be in the classroom, that could be on the practice field. If they don't understand something, they need to have the agency and they need to learn how to have the agency to ask for clarification. So as parents, we can teach them how to facilitate productive problem solving is what I call it. When your child is upset, listen, validate their feelings, but don't rush to their aid immediately. Instead, guide them towards constructive solutions so they can develop their problem solving skills. One phrase that often resonates with my students is be positive, productive, and part of the solution as you're trying to figure out what it is that you might be coping with. And then I think the other thing that parents can do is let their kids fail. And I say that, with the best intentions. But the truth is that sometimes we have to let our kids fail in order for them to learn how to thrive. So by the time your kids are in college, you're not going to be able to swoop in and fix things for them. I've seen parents complete assignments for their kids because they're struggling with the subject matter or they don't have time to get it done, but that doesn't teach your child anything. So I really suggest working with your child to come up with positive change, teaching them the skills that they need to be successful in life, and supporting them through it so that when they get to college, they can handle it on their own.
I think that's such great advice. And I'm curious from your perspective too, on top of this question, for those parents that have maybe overcompensated in some capacity, where we have these older student athletes, maybe at the high school age, and now they're wanting to kind of switch focus because they notice maybe their child's executive functioning skills aren't that great, right? How do you recommend that they intervene, whether it's letting them fail, or how do they kind of undo what they've done thus far, would you say?
First of all, yeah, don't sweat it. You haven't ruined anything. But I do think you can get help. There are some great executive functioning skills coaches out there. I've interviewed one of them before, Rachel Barron. She's fantastic with effective students. So I think at any point in time, it's the perfect time to step in and make a change and support your student athlete so that they can get to the end result that they are trying to achieve.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's always helpful to know that there are other resources out there and that it's never too late.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Amy, I love when you mentioned, letting them fail and, being a student athlete, that comes first. What can families do to ensure there's an academic balance for their children?
I love this question because with athletics, academics have to come first. And a good way to measure that is to do a check on the amount of time that your child's spending in school and compare that to the amount of time that they're spending on their sport. So I'm not talking about, homework time. By the way, I'm not a huge proponent of homework in elementary education, especially. There's been lots of studies showing that too much homework at a young age is really counterproductive. But I'm talking about like hour for hour. How much time are they, if they're tennis players, how much time are they on the court versus how much time are they in school learning? The academics has to come first. So I would just keep an eye on your child's priorities here. Because what I can tell you about the college athletics recruiting process is the stronger a student athlete's academics are, the better their scholarship options are for college. And that's not the reverse. So I would also, one other thing about the academic balance here is because I've seen parents kind of go the other way as well, where if a student's not doing well in school, then they'll take away the sport. And that can be really counterproductive as well. I would first look at taking away other privileges if a student isn't doing well in school rather than taking away your sport. Sports and academics, they truly have this symbiotic relationship. And kids tend to do better in school when they are playing sports. So not the other way around. And there's plenty of studies that show that in high school and college athletic departments, where the students that are athletes routinely have higher GPAs than their non-athletic peers. And then I would say also that when you're ensuring that there's an academic balance for your student, that you also ensure that there's a holistic balance, that there are other factors going into your student's life to help them thrive. And so that can include all sorts of things, but I especially think a child's social engagements here are key. And a lot of kids do get their social time through their sport. But when that happens, their identity gets all intertwined with their sport. So if for, some reason they might not be able to play their sport or suddenly they're not performing as well in their sport, then we lose sense of who we are, who my friends are, all of that. And so it's really important for parents, I think, to just keep a finger on the pulse of everything that your child is juggling, not just the academics, but keeping the academics front and center and keeping that holistic kind of view central as well.
I love that. And what the powerful comment that you made is about taking away the sport and something else, especially post-pandemic when a lot of our teenagers lost pretty much everything during that time, including the sport. So I love that. I never thought about that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I love too how you brought up the social component, because I think, like we said, that social and emotional piece is so huge with our student athletes and our students in general. So I'd love some ideas on how parents can help foster these skills while juggling school, sports, and maybe even the recruiting process as well.
Yeah, so I have tons of resources like this on my website and my blog. I do a lot of like social emotional kind of thoughts for parents through athletics. But what I can say, like many of the parents that are on this call today, my husband and we're proud parents as well. And I was a coach professionally for a long time. I do not coach my sons. That's one thing that I think is really important. When we see them after a game, we simply say 5 words to them, and that is, "We love watching you play." And that's a TED Talk actually that I found I really enjoy. It's John O'Sullivan, if anyone wants to look it up. Really, really powerful kind of messaging there about, being parents and letting the coaches coach your kid and you just loving your kid. If my child wants to talk about his performance, we don't do it. We really try to skirt around the question. We definitely don't do it on the field or even on the way home, especially not on the way home from a game. But if something is bothering him, we'll encourage him to take time to think about it. If his concerns persist, we always suggest that he communicate with his coach. So again, this is skill building stuff. We're teaching him appropriate ways to reach out to his coach. We don't let him complain to us. If he does complain, we always try to redirect his energy to the things that he can control. And I always say this to even my college student athletes, and that is, what are the 2 things that you can control here? And that's your effort and that's your attitude. And that's really it. Everything else is completely out of your control. The results, the referee, your opponent, all of that stuff out of your control, but your effort and attitude, that's well within your reign there. So I think, those are just some simple lessons, but to just kind of dive a little bit deeper, I would say to parents to really focus on making sure that their sideline behavior is exemplary. You know, we all know the parents, the ones that are yelling at the referees during the games. But really that stuff shouldn't be done publicly or privately. And then, of course, the over-involvement of parents in the whole sports process can really impact the social emotional component of a student athlete. And, I mentioned that before, but for me, when I'm dealing with my student athletes that are being recruited to go to college coaches look for that. They look for the over-involved parent. They raise a red flag, and that could really negatively impact a student's recruiting process. I would also encourage families to make sure that their priorities are right here with their child playing a sport. So remember that your ultimate goal in having your child play a sport is to grow into a confident and independent person, right? Wise parents will shun the prestige communities that communities often describe to raising an athletically gifted child, like that prestige. They want to be the best, they want to share with their friends, they want to get recruited by the best school, all of that stuff. But rather than getting wrapped up in all of that, smart parents consider their child's sport a character development tool, and that's where their focus lies. And then just a couple more points on that too. I'm pretty passionate about this subject, so thank you for asking. But I think it's really important for parents to understand their job description too. That's what I, call it. Their job is to get their child to games, practices, if they're being recruited to campus tours, and then their job's to step aside. And that's tough for parents. So it's especially tough during tough times, right? So what I mean is that when your child does experience, an obstacle along the journey, it's imperative for parents to kind of maintain their perspective and their support of that team and the coach. I said before, don't complain about coaches, like maintain that support. And that approach will, again, contribute positively to the development of the student athlete. And then last point here, I promise, is not to rush the process. It's really common for parents to expect a little too much too soon out of their student athletes. But every player develops physically, emotionally at different rates. And so I think it's really important for parents to be patient, trust your child's coaches to help them get to where they need to be and to be ready when they get there. But, I guess the summary here is that parenting is not easy, right? And one of the toughest parts is guarding against internalizing a child's success. So whether or not a child plays well or for a prestigious team, it's not a reflection on you as a parent. And that's what I want to get across. That's the best way to support your child, is to just remember that.
Love that. I love hearing the proactive tips on social emotional support for an athletic child. However, we do know there's some things that we're just not prepared for, like a sports injury. So my next question, we want to get a little bit deeper here. How can parents adjust their support and expectation of the athletic child when an injury happens?
Well, I want to point out that an injury might not be a physical injury. Like, we could certainly have an emotional injury as well. Burnout is a real thing. And so I kind of treat both physical and emotional injuries similarly when, I'm counseling parents on these situations. So I think, first and foremost, like you said, we have to adjust priorities and expectations of our child. And in my space, in the recruiting space, that might mean that a student athlete's list needs to change. Their dream D1 school might no longer be a real reality for them. But they can still have a satisfying and rewarding experience in college. We just need to broaden the list a little bit. Take a look at some other options. It might be D2, D3, it might be club, might be junior college, whatever it is, there are options out there. So be open-minded. And then also along the same lines of being open-minded, be open to any kind of unforeseen opportunity. When you're struck with something kind of unexpected, like an injury, remember that something positive can always come out of that later on. And I'll give you an example. I had a student who had to modify her list of schools because she was injured through the process with an ACL tear. And it was deep into the recruiting process, so it really impacted where she would be able to play and get some looks. And she had kind of resolved herself to not playing in college, but continued to play with her club team when she was back up to form and everything else. And then suddenly, spring of her senior year, she was at a showcase with her team, had already decided, I'm done with soccer. My career's over, everything else. And a coach saw her play, pulled her over to the side, said, what, I need your position. I know it's late, but, can we make this happen? She went and visited, loved it, and it totally turned into an opportunity for her very, very late in the process. So I think, keeping that open mind is really important. There are positive things that come out of the uncontrollables, we say. And then help your child refocus. That's important too. When there is an injury or there's something, emotional, setting your child back from their sport, remember that everyone has setbacks. Successful athletes learn to train their minds to overcome setbacks. So, and remember also that if anyone that's intent on playing college sports, they must work on their mental game, whether they've had an injury or not, because they have to learn to respond appropriately and recover quickly when things don't go well. It's that resilience piece. So again, help them refocus there and help them recover. And as a parent, you can do this by avoiding phrases like, well, you used to play like this. Or I noticed you made that mistake. This is more from the mental side of things, but I noticed you made that mistake again when you were playing today. if parents repeatedly hold what went wrong reviews like that, children will feel defined by their mistakes and they'll lose sight again of their current identity. So we need to encourage them to continue to learn and continue to move on through any kind of setback. And then lastly, on this point, I'll say, and this is important for parents to remember, that breaks are good for kids. Help your child recharge. So whether it's a prescribed one due to an injury or a needed one due to low confidence. I've seen so many players come back from an extended break and play their best tennis ever. I was a college tennis coach. So your child just might need a real family vacation, hiking or playing on the beach, more than a showcase or an ID camp or a tryout. Families need to spend time together doing something that they all enjoy, and that doesn't have anything to do with the child's sport, you know.
Thank you. And we just got a comment from Rachel Barron in the chat saying what went wrong reviews. Well said. So I agree. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Belly on mute.
Of course I am. Sorry. I think there's something to say too. I really love how you highlighted the difference between, a mental injury or a physical one. And I think a lot of times our mind is what gets us in the way a lot when there's a lot of pressure involved. So I would love to kind of dive a little bit deeper for like signs in your child that they may need a mental break. What does that look like for parents? What signs should they look out for? And any advice you have on that in that span?
Well, there's certainly physical signs that you can look out for. Extreme fatigue is a good one. Nagging chronic injuries is another one. And then just, I think also you can glean this from having conversations with your kids. Billie Jean King, I had the great pleasure of meeting. She's, unbelievable athlete, unbelievable, advocate. What's amazing to me is when she was growing up, and this is what she told us on one time when I met her, her mother never asked her if she won or if she lost. Never. It was always like, come on in. How are you? Did you have fun? And that's it. And so I think that's, in the simplest form, like as a parent, if you start doing that, and then you're picking up on signals that, maybe they're just not having fun. That's really the best indicator, I think, that something needs to change and a break needs to happen.
That's great advice. And I know we kind of hit on a lot of high points today, from executive functioning to injuries to the academic balance. So when we chatted last, you had talked about a wonderful survey that you brought as a resource for our parents. So I'd love to kind of hear you speak a little bit about that piece and what that entails for our parents and our student athletes as well.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up, Bailey. I appreciate it. This has been a little passion project of mine and my team for quite some time now. I'm a huge proponent of cultivating a growth mindset in student athletes. So the survey that we created is really supposed to serve as a springboard for conversation with a student's coach, with parents, peers, et cetera, about areas of potential growth, while indicating readiness for the demands of being a collegiate student athlete. The survey is broken up into 6 skill sets that the most successful collegiate student athletes display. And those 6 are interpersonal skills, which contribute to being a solid teammate. Coachability, which demonstrates the ability to work with your coach. Pretty simple. Self-motivation and discipline, meaning that you really want to be out there and really want to be doing this for reasons that extend just beyond the X's and the O's. Resilience, meaning you can overcome setbacks like we talked about before. Passion for your sport, which really needs to be an underlying feeling that student athletes are having because they're going to be out on the court or the field for hours and a day. So that passion has to really, that the flame has to still be lit inside of them for a good 4 years. And then, of course, the executive functioning skills as well. The survey does touch on those because time management and being able to get to where you need to be when you need to be there is such an important skill to have when you're in college and you're managing the demands of being a student athlete, and especially the demands of studying. Those late night trips are taxing for student athletes. And so being able to just manage out your week and forecast is essential. So those are the 6 areas. And at the end of the survey, it gives you a little score in each of those 6 areas and a little explanation as well, better than the one that I articulated, but certainly can be used for future growth and exploration.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know Robert is bringing up a QR code that allows access to this survey. And I do like to go back to where you talked about growth mindset. I think it's so important when we are receiving, this feedback as a student athlete, that it's giving you room to grow, and things that help make you self-aware. So that's just amazing that they can really have that rating scale and figure out, where they need to continue to grow and take that constructive feedback.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna have some fun and get to know you a lot better. So we're gonna move to our Fast Five segment, where I'm gonna ask you 5 questions you can only answer in 1 sentence. I repeat, I'm gonna give you 5 questions you can only answer in 1 sentence. All right, are you ready?
Yep.
So, as a parent of an athlete yourself, how did you manage your time so you could be fulfilled in every aspect of your life? Because there's a lot of commitments for the parents as well when your child is playing sports.
In 1 sentence?
Yeah, and then you can explain further after giving 1 sentence.
So how do I, as a parent, does it count if I repeat the question to get clarification? So
No.
how do I, as a parent, manage everything that I'm doing, find fulfillment as a parent while I'm trying to help my child find fulfillment?
Yes.
Got you. I don't have the easy answer for that. There's my sentence.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, that is something that I'm still working on, and probably will for my entire life. But I think it all boils down to balance and recognizing as a parent that you need time for yourself too, in order to give everything to your child that they need.
Thank you for being honest. Next question. If you could create a law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
I'm really thinking on this one. I mean, I know what first came to mind, and that is that I'm trying to phrase it properly. Um, Parents have to suck on lollipops during soccer games. And I say that I have to clarify that. But when they're sucking on a lollipop, they can't yell at the ref, they can't yell at their kids, and they can just watch their kid play, which is what, that's the beauty. And it's not just soccer games, of course, it's all games, but that's the beauty of having a child as a student athlete or as a player. It's just to be able to watch them play. So just watch.
Amy
So,
Bryant, suckers coming to you.
so this is the 2-part question. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Go with your gut. And I got that advice from a mentor of mine back when I was coaching college sports. And I would waver between things. I mean, as a college coach, we're under so much pressure to perform, pressure to keep the kids happy, pressure to make the parents happy. And then there's even more pressure that we put on ourselves. And all of that pressure can create all this indecisiveness. And my mentor just said, you know what, go with your gut. What is your gut telling you? Go with it and don't look back. And that was really helpful for me.
However, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Advice. I don't know that I've ever received like really bad advice. I don't know. I don't have nothing that's coming to mind. I just have to say that all the people that have given me advice have really, even if it wasn't the right advice in that moment, it was still something that I could learn from. So I'm sorry, I'm copping out on that answer.
There's no wrong or right to this, so thank you. Thank you. You're lucky. So my last question here, let's hop in a time machine. You had a very successful journey as a head coach, many trophies. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Um, I think this gets back to the first one-liner that you asked me, and that is, I think I would probably prioritize my needs a little more. I think through all of that, which on paper is extremely exciting and successful. And I look back on my body of work and I'm like, wow, that I don't know how I did that or how that happened. I mean, I know how I did that. I had amazing players and I had amazing people working for me and all of that. But I neglected to really put myself first in a lot of situations or just, just in general. And you need to take care of yourself. Like self-care is important in order to have sustained success and to have longevity in your career. And I think that's, probably one thing that I can look back on and say, could have done that a little bit better.
Thank you. I know this is 5 questions, but I want to add to that. What about as a player? Would you change anything if you had to go back as a player?
That's a good one. And that's a long time ago. um, you know, I think as a player, I had more to give. And that might be coming from me as a coach, coaching my former self. But I really think that I had more to give. And I think I held back because I wasn't confident in, I was afraid of taking risks. And so I think if there's any messaging here is that, taking risks is, calculated risks can really take you farther. That's how you learn, right? You make mistakes. And I think that I was afraid of those mistakes and could have worked a lot harder and potentially even achieved more if I had.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable. That was awesome. So now, can you tell our viewers where we can find more information about you and Bryant Coaching?
Absolutely. So I am online. I have a website. It's bryantcollegecoaching.com. And if you're interested in the student athlete survey, you can find that on our resources page there as well. It's under the services. But I do have a newsletter that goes out once a month where I post tips and answer questions that people have asked me, have mailed into me. So you get some good parental tips in there, lots of great athletics recruiting information, and then some, real stuff about coaching as well. Because I do, as part of my services, offer some coaching for coaches, which I didn't mention at the beginning. But I do believe that coaches need coaches as well. So I do offer some services for coaching too. But yeah, I would love, shoot me a message. I will meet with anyone for 15 minutes for free. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me a message, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about your needs.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us. Actually, I'm getting back into playing tennis. I had my first tennis lesson in a long time on Tuesday. I had to get my Eastern Continental grip together. So you might need to help me with that.
Nice.
Yes. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Good night.
Okay, thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.